Arushi Malhotra, a good friend, she's asking a question. How do you see COVID changing the channel and consumer landscape? And what are the tips for leading marketeers and brand managers to spearhead this new era?
Yeah, I think the first one is spearhead it really and lead it. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. This is time to create things. And if you look historically, there was a generation that created soap operas as a tool to do marketing. Right?
Yeah.
What is the equivalent of that today? Right? No one created it, so someone needs to create that. I think what is happening today is that there are certain things that happened online and digitally that marketeers started jumping on to leverage, like bloggers, like influencers, and so on. The question is, what tool will this generation create that is the equivalent of soap operas 60, 70 years ago? Right? I haven't seen it personally. And I would encourage the marketeers to think about that. Think about creation. It's not about being creative around what exists. It's about being creative about creating something that is going to become a new marketing tool. That I would encourage them to do. From a consumer standpoint, just to answer the full question to Arushi, is consumers are going to change, and I think they're going to be influenced much more by the millennials. So the millennials will have a big influence on consumers. And now the millennials are not anymore the small part of the consumers, they're the majority. And I think there are many other groups who will be influenced by that. So you need to think, I think in the new era, you need to think millennial and understand what does it mean, because there's a bit of superficial understanding of what millennial means. Now I think is the time to dig deeper and really do data mining on and go talk to them. I'll tell you, I will tell you a quick story about this. I was in a meeting a long time ago, and we were talking, actually it was the Febreze brand, and the brand manager was sitting there, and the big boss made the decision, and the brand manager raised his hand, and I said, I disagree with you. Not the right decision. So everyone looked shocked, what are you doing? So the big boss looked at him and said, why are you disagreeing? And, what experience do you have to say that? He said, listen, over the past year, I sat in one-on-one with 1,000 consumers. I know more about this brand than anyone in this room. So actually, the big boss was very kind, and he told him, listen, from now on, any decision I make on Febreze, you will be in the room and I will listen to you first. So understanding millennials, there are a lot of articles out there, in my view, superficial. Dig deep and be like this guy that I told you about, but without, going for the extra punch to your boss, especially at this time. Not a good time to do that.
Just yes, if you want to.
Yeah, I will also particularly elaborate a little bit on my view on the channel. What differences will we see? When the crisis first started, the first natural reaction was panic buy. And again, I'm talking about the industry I know the most, which is in food. So what happens is, when you want to buy in big quantities, you go to large outlets, hypermarkets, what have you. Then what we saw is, so in the beginning, this boosted. Then what we saw over the last 2 months is that the discounters and convenience becomes to play a bigger role than initially also they were in the past. So they are on an accelerated growth trajectory. And that's because today people don't want to go to very big stores and spend there a lot of time. So it's really going not anymore partially for entertainment. Shopping became very functional. So that meant that certain channels will grow faster, and that's what we are witnessing. Plus, of course, what we spoke about in terms of e-commerce, and that also as a channel became so many people today that never ordered anything online have experience in ordering online. And unlike you, يا تامر, you are a professor online, but مش كل الناس, and naturally many people today are facing this experience. And from a consumer, I agree, millennials have already been playing a fundamental role and a challenge to marketeers of today, and they will continue because they are the majority. That's very true. But I would say also, I would add that there is all of a sudden again consumers go back into brands they trust. So again, I want to just talk about trust and what also Muhammad rightly mentioned. uh, Consumers trust brands, and brands should behave responsibly and with respect in these times, not to do the wrong things today so that they survive today only. So they need to make sure that they don't touch what makes these brands so powerful and the fundamentals of the brand. So we are seeing a major shift into more trusted brands and of course increased consumption at home. Plus also the fact that I do believe that what we saw also from this crisis is that all of a sudden the impact on the environment has been one of the best times. And of course, consumers will be expecting from the industry in total and from governments what actions we take in the future to, without the lockdown, but at least to continue to contribute to a better tomorrow in the environment.
I personally believe this is not something I read somewhere, but that's a personal belief that millennials is an attitude more than an age group. I've seen people in that age group who are very far from what we would expect from millennials. And as a dear friend of mine always tells me, you are a millennial, so don't. So I consider myself a millennial, not in age, but in attitude. So this, I think, like Muhammad was saying, not in the articles or in the books that could be superficial, but actually trying to corner what are the set of attitudes that are currently in trend and are happening in a massive amount, and that would push the purchase decision as opposed to just a group of people in terms of age, I mean.
بس يا تامر، أنا إذا we want to add a little bit of فلسفة على الموضوع شوي without maybe elaborating too much. And I think there's gonna be also a need to shift certain aspirations millennials had. We know, for example, just one example, that Generation X, which we are all part of that generation, for example, we believed in stability. أنت millennial بس نحن in stability and in having a house and a car. And we know that millennials are more global in their mind. They prefer the adventure of traveling and exploring rather than being based in one place, which is amazing. Today, we don't know the implications of what we live and how long this will take. And we don't know if it continues to be a viable option to continue to think that we are, continuing to live this adventure of exploring globally. So I don't know if it will also, maybe the point I'm trying to make, I think also there will be a change in what we know the attitude of millennials or the behaviors of millennials are, certainly with what we are living today, some way.
I think we also created in our heads a certain label for millennials, that if you don't fit that label, you're not a millennial anymore. And that's what I meant exactly by we need to dig deeper, right? So to your point, Tamer, and the only tip I have there, dig deeper, because whatever the definition is, what is important is that it then becomes actionable, that you can do something with it. So for example, if you're going to do media targeting, you need to define it in a way that you can translate into how you buy your media. Otherwise, it's just philosophy, right? And but I think this is an area with all the amount of data we have right now, I feel we're just touching the surface. We need to go deeper and deeper about millennials.